From Chicago's CAN TV, this is Chicago Newsroom.
Well, hi there, and welcome to Chicago Newsroom here on CAN TV. I'm Ken Davis for what has turned out to be the final edition of Chicago Newsroom. And we're going out on a pretty high note because our special guest on the show today, well, I guess we're her special guest because Lori Lightfoot invited us to go over to her office at the City Hall and to talk with her for about a half an hour about the first week or so on her job. And we're very, very pleased and honored about that. A little bit later on, we're going to be talking with two people from the Daily Line, two of our favorite reporters in town, A.D. Quigg and Heather Sharon. And beyond that, we'll have a little talk with John Dempsey from WLS Radio, who's one of our old friends, and our producer, Dave Resnick, is going to stop by for a few minutes, too. So right now, without further ado, Mayor Lori Lightfoot on Chicago Newsroom. It's Chicago Newsroom here on CAN TV. I'm Ken Davis, and what a way to end. We have a special guest today who, let's face it, just needs no introduction. I'm so happy to have you here, Mayor Lori Lightfoot.
My pleasure.
You know, we talked to you so many times on Chicago Newsroom through the last couple of years as you were with the Police Accountability Task Force and, you know, the police board and so many other things. And, you know, the thing that I've wanted, I always thought if I ever got to ask you another question again, it would be, how the heck does it feel? I mean, what was it like to walk up to the podium yesterday at City Council for the first time and chair that and stand at the big podium? What did you feel like?
Well, you know, you of course had a little bit of nerves, although we had, you know, made sure that we had things understood from a procedural standpoint. There's a lot of technical parliamentary procedural issues, but it felt pretty awesome. I mean, just looking out into the gallery, looking to the people, some people who I recognize from other public hearings that I've chaired over the years. But it was clearly a very big moment, and I wanted to make sure that we did well, that we were able to take care of our business in an expeditious fashion. But it is strange still when I walk around and I see a photograph of the mayor and it happens to be me. Or, I am a news junkie, so I look at several blogs in the morning. And one day last week, I looked at the very bottom of the blog and it said, you know, where's JB? And then the next thing under that was like, where's Lori? And I'm like, wait a minute, that's me.
She accomplished, right? Yeah,
exactly,
right,
exactly.
Yeah, and the first time I saw that too, it was like, wow, that. I guess the reason that I'm so interested in this is that unlike others who've ascended to this job, you spent the last couple of years leading community meetings. I mean, the PATF stuff and so many other, well, the hearings on the federal probe and everything. So you're coming in with a constituency that sees you as something other than mayors in the past, who they've just kind of seen as these kind of obscure political figures. There are so many people in Chicago who feel like they've gotten to know you, I mean, met you personally over the last couple of years. So it's, I don't know, it just feels like a different dynamic to me somehow.
It does feel like a different dynamic for me as well. And my experience with people everywhere, whether it's some kind of formal meeting like I had last night or just going to the grocery store, I am feeling a level of hope and optimism that I haven't seen in the city in quite a long time. And I just want to make sure that every day I'm working hard to be worthy of the hope that people and the optimism that people have for this moment of change. It is daunting, but it's also exhilarating at the same time. I'm very enthusiastic about really digging down deep and solving problems. And I still keep hearing from people, and I suppose I'll hear it for the foreseeable future. Well, this is the way we've always done it. I'm like, okay, but does it make sense? Why do we do it this way? Does it actually serve the issue, the interest, the people that we are sworn to be working hard for every single day? So kind of pushing the norms and challenging the status quo, that's exciting to me.
Did you even know when you went to sleep on election night that you were going to pick up every single ward?
No.
You found that out the next day like the rest of us, I guess, huh?
Yeah, we had done our polling and we had known for quite a long time that victory seemed certain, but I'm a cautious trial lawyer, so I leave nothing behind. But picking up every ward was something that we certainly didn't anticipate. I mean, that was such an incredible gift from the voters of the city. It was just awesome to feel that. I didn't go to bed for a long time that night, so I did find out that night. But no, it was magical and exhilarating and surreal, and all the other adjectives that you can imagine to say, wow, something incredible just happened.
So I'll get off of this in a minute, but I'm just obsessing on this. I have been for a while. So there was a moment when you could feel that there was some kind of like a psychic shift in the energy of the city toward you. Was it the TV commercial with Vivian playing the trumpet or something, or what was
No,
it?
I actually think it was sooner than that. Probably 2 weeks out from the February 26th election, we really started feeling this pull. Our calls for volunteers were answered and way exceeded expectations. Our efforts in the field were just bearing fruit. People we were reaching out to try to persuade and said, oh, don't worry, I already voted, I'm supporting her. So we were feeling this momentum, still didn't know what that looked like, and at that point we were still kind of this ragtag insurgent, but we definitely felt like something was moving in our direction. And then, not only winning on February 26th, but coming out on top of that large field, that was really kind of the galvanizing moment where we knew we were on the cusp of something really special and important. And our early polling right after February 26th showed us, I will tell you that when the pollster came to me and gave me the number, I said to him, I don't believe you.
You're fired.
I don't believe it, and we're not going to tell anybody, because it was just a magnitude.
We're not going to tell anybody.
I just felt like no one would believe us because the spread was so large in our favor, and it turned out he was right. Well, it turned out he was wrong because he underestimated actually what the spread was going to be.
I know from just the last last 6 weeks or so of going to events like the ACLU, there was a forum there, and there just felt like some kind of a weird thing that was happening where you would make a comment and people would just kind of spontaneously applaud. And that was when I started thinking, there really is something happening here. But anyway, so moving to the current day, we have the city council, and obviously it's been well reported this morning from yesterday that you had a spectacular day. You got your reorganization through on a voice vote. You know enough about us to know that we're obsessed with the media on our show. We really like to talk about news and journalism and so forth. I couldn't help but notice that when you were in DC for that 3 days or whatever it was, that everyone was enjoying talking to all the aldermen who were saying, this administration has essentially already failed. I mean, she doesn't know how to talk to us. She can't possibly deal with us. She's off talking with Ivanka or something, and she's wasting all this time when she should be organizing the council. Well, it kind of didn't work out that way.
Yeah.
Was there a question there? I don't know.
Look, you know as well as I do that there are certain people who like to see their name in print, and although a lot of those comments were, anonymous sources from the city council. Look, we were engaging with them on a regular basis. We were very methodical in the way that we were doing our work. I wanted to understand the structure of city council. I wanted to understand the committees, what their mission was. I looked at data about how many times they met, what they met about. Were they just passing resolutions, or were they actually doing substantive work? Looked at the budgets, looked at whether or not they met the budgets. We analyzed data about, well, who were the employees, how much were they getting paid? So all of that work was being done at the same time that we were engaging folks. Now, what the complaint really was is she's not calling me and meeting with me and giving me the spoils of government. That's really what a lot of those criticisms boiled down to. So be it. I'm a different kind of person, and the freedom that I have, having not come up through the democratic machine, is that I can do things my way because I am only beholden to the voters. I'm not beholden to any special interest. And so we're pushing people out of their comfort zone, and they don't like that, but welcome to the party.
Yeah, I was going to say, even as recently as a week ago, there were speculations in the press that you'd never be able to get Wagas back into finance, that Tom Tunney and you know, others, there were a number of people who wanted the job, and that there was going to be 25 votes, maybe 26 votes or something like that. So when did you know that this was going to all go through? It was going to be just fine?
Well, look, you never know till you know, right? And I don't take anything for granted. But we've been working really, really hard over many weeks to make sure that we were listening to people, that we were reaching out, that we were getting ourselves prepared. And you know, it certainly could have been if somebody had the wherewithal to put together an actual alternative slate, as opposed to, you know, to kick up a little bit of dust as happened at the council meeting. But we felt pretty confident really last week going into it, you know, but that's as a result of the hard work of our floor leader, other allies in the city council, and a really, really good team that we put together to manage relationships with city council.
So no council wars for you, apparently?
You know, look, I don't want a rubber stamp city council. And I hope that what you see on the council floor is a result of a collaborative process, not dictatorial, top down, but a collaborative process. And there are going to be things that we agree on, things that we don't agree on. There's a bunch of things that were dropped yesterday by aldermen, and I haven't had a full readout, but there's some things that I'm not going to agree with. There's some things that I support. But that's part of the democratic process.
Put in the hopper for
yes, exactly, for future consideration. So, but that's part of the democratic process. And people in the city are sick and tired of the status quo. They feel like the city council is kabuki theater. Everything's pre-baked. That doesn't add to the legitimacy of government. We have a lot of tough choices that we're going to have to face in the coming months, particularly around municipal finance. We're not going to get the support of residents and voters if we don't demonstrate to them that the government is legitimate. I expect that there's going to be criminal charges brought, perhaps against some new people, names that haven't really been out there. We have to have a government that stands for legitimacy and integrity. That's the only way we're going to be able to weather these storms.
The committee structure is something that you wanted. You got it exactly the way you wanted it. And that, of course, raises this whole, you know, it could be a whole long discussion about the thing about aldermanic prerogative and the organization of the city council. You've advocated that the city council should organize itself, but then it ended up being your organization that they passed. So,
well, but let me push back on it a little bit, right? I meant what I said before about collaboration, right? I didn't come into office with this grand plan of here's what we're going to do, and then I sold it or I shoved it down the throats.
Right.
The plan that passed and the organization that passed yesterday was the result of a lot of discussions and back and forth with city council members, asking them. I met with a number of them. Those meetings, one-on-one meetings, are going to continue. What are their interests and their wards? What are the things that can be helpful to them? So it was a collaborative process. It gets, you know, it went through, you know, with the pounding of a gavel by me. But that was a collaborative process. I want that to be very clear.
I'd like to talk a little bit about police. I mean, obviously, this is how you became well known in the public, is with your police reform efforts. Carlos Ramirez Rosa apparently is talking about wanting to reintroduce the CPAC. I always get them confused, but he wants to reintroduce CPAC, and you, of course, are in favor of GAPA. You are planning on introducing the Grassroots Alliance proposal. So you're kind of at odds with each other, but the thing that I find most remarkable about it is that until you were elected, neither of those proposals could even make it to the floor for discussion. There were alternatives brought up by the previous administration. So what's exciting about this is that there's a potential for there to be a real conversation about the difference between these two fairly significant proposals, and maybe there will be some compromise will come out of that.
Well, I think that what's important, a lot of these things about civilian oversight, whether it's an elected school board or civilian oversight of the police, are born of a lack of confidence in the prior administration's handling of these matters. And I think that we have to have a conversation, to be sure, about what that would look like. What are the objectives that we have here? You know, I just did an interview with a student at the Jones College Prep newspaper. She brought up the issue of an elected school board, and there was a bill that passed out of the House, sponsored by Representative Martwick, that called for a 21-member board. And this was obviously something that was hashed out and supported by CTU. There may have been other organizations, but it's really a CTU-driven vehicle. And she said, well, you know, you said this, but you opposed this, and why? And there's a lot of reasons why, but I want to make sure that in all of this, we are focused on what's the objective, what's the mission, and how do we best get there.
Right.
And when it comes to oversight of the police, we shouldn't fear that. It's been in existence, for example, in Los Angeles for a long time, but the devil is always in the details. And I want to make sure that our police department has the tools and the resources it needs to be successful. And success to me is protecting the safety of every resident of the city. But I also want to make sure there's a measure of accountability. And I'm holding them accountable in very specific ways and new ways that they haven't experienced before because of my knowledge and experience. But when you talk about a $2 billion plus organization, and of course that doesn't count the settlements and judgments and attorney's fees, when you talk about an organization that literally touches every resident on a daily, if not weekly, on a weekly, if not daily basis, millions of touches every single year, they've got to be accountable to the residents of the city. So that to me is the concept that we need to be focused on and embody when we think about civilian oversight. We have to do it in a way that sets up the body for success, that has a measure of accountability, that we're getting people into those seats that actually have the requisite experience and expertise to be able to perform meaningful oversight, so it's not perfunctory. But let's have that debate.
Of course, this brings up the issue of the police union and Kevin Graham, and you were not terribly easy on him at the City Club of Chicago when you were there a couple days ago, and you said that he has a real problem focusing on yes, getting to yes. He's always talking, he's always saying no about things, and you raised, I think, some very interesting points about the fact that if we could work together, we might be able to get mental health issues for police who are,
right,
you know, facing a lot of problems. But you seem so incredibly far apart at this point. How in the world are you going to be able to bridge that gap and come to a police contract? Well,
we'll ultimately come to a contract because we have to, right? But the notion that the FOP is going to live in this fantasy world where they are absolutely adamantly against anything that looks like reform, even when it's in the best interest of their members, that's not going to be a reality that's going to exist in at least as long as I'm mayor of the city. I'd love for them to partner with us. I think there's a lot of things that we actually could agree on. Officer wellness was one of the things that I talked about the other day. But there's not going to be a lot of space for that if the reflex constantly is no, 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 and an attitude of entitlement. They're entitled to do their job, to serve and protect, to live out the oath that they've sworn. Everything else beyond that, we will definitely deal with at the bargaining table. But you know, there were rumors floating around about, and I didn't verify this, but rumors floating around that they were telling their officers, don't do anything, don't over Memorial Day weekend, don't intercede. If you see some criminal activity, just lay back, do nothing. I hope to God that wasn't true, because man, oh man, if that happened, there's going to be a reckoning.
Do you have any reason to believe that that happened?
Well, it happened 2 years ago, in almost 3 years ago, leading into Labor Day in 2016, when we had this catastrophic level of violence. The then administration, which there are some carryovers from that, put out a memo telling officers that they should not show up for work, that they shouldn't do their job, that they shouldn't be the police. I thought it was an absolutely outrageous thing. That Rahm Emanuel said nothing about it. I was livid when I saw it. And again, that was documented. I think they weren't foolish enough to put something like that out in writing. But God forbid, we're going to say to officers that when they see criminal activity, they should lay back as some stunt? That's outrageous.
Can you talk to us a little bit about again, at the personal level, what you saw and felt on the Memorial Day weekend? I mean, this was a big moment for you. You really wanted to make a kind of a public statement of who you are and where you are. And I'm sure there were successes, but at least the headlines are numbers didn't go down, the numbers are the same.
Well, the numbers weren't exactly the same. We were actually ahead on homicides, but we were up on shootings. We were up on gun collections. But you know, we're nibbling around the edges. It was not a good weekend. We could have absolutely done better than what we did. And I made that very clear to the superintendent and his team. There were just mistakes that were made, which are unacceptable. Mistakes that cost people's lives, mistakes that led to injuries and death. We can't have that. And I made that very, very clear. I'm not going to micromanage the police department, but I am going to hold them accountable.
Are you finding that the police brass is accepting of you, or are you feeling some recalcitrance there?
You know, it doesn't really matter if they're accepting to me or not.
True.
I'm the mayor. I'm their boss, and I'm going to hold them accountable. So whatever they say to me in my face, whatever they think personally, really is irrelevant. The point is, they need to do their jobs to keep people safe in the city, and I'm going to hold them accountable on that. You know, what I saw was, you know, what I know and what you know, which is there's a huge level of disparity and inequity across our city. I'll give you an example. I was on North Avenue Beach with the superintendent. North Avenue Beach is like Hollywood, right? It's like Disneyland. There's hot and cold running everything. And then an hour later, I was down at Rainbow Beach. And it was night and day difference. The lack of amenities, the lack of investment, the lack of people. North Avenue, even though it wasn't a spectacularly warm day, was pretty crowded. When I went to Rainbow Beach, maybe 10 people on the beach, maybe, but no amenities whatsoever. Investments in that area are absolutely unacceptably low. I made that very clear to Mike Kelly, the head of the Park District. We've got to do better by our people. We've got to show people in every neighborhood that they matter, and that they matter because we're making investments in them.
Well, we're making an investment in a golf course on the south side.
Maybe. We'll see about that.
We'll see about that. We have just a couple of minutes left, and there's so many things I want to cover, but I would really love to talk to you about the Fair Work Week ordinance, just radically switching topics here. This is a kind of a personal thing for you too. I mean, I know this is something that you feel very strongly about, and I have a similar kind of background as yours, and it's really important to people who don't earn a lot of money, who are trying to build a family, as your parents and my parents did. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it is really personal to me. My mom worked a series of low-wage jobs in healthcare organizations, mental institutions, nursing homes, and then at the end of her working life, she was a home health care aide working with the sick and shut-in, and not having a predictable schedule so that she could plan for things related to us, whether or not she needed to supplement child care, and just be able to live a life where you understood what your schedule was really important. And there were times when that didn't happen, and times when she was treated quite poorly. Ended up losing her job a couple times because her family came first. So I know what that feels like as a child of a parent who's struggling in that kind of environment. And I recognize that it's not one size fits all. Hospitals are different than restaurants, different than other kinds of businesses. And so crafting a solution that meets the needs of these different businesses with different schedules is going to be challenging. There's no question about that. But the answer isn't no. The answer is, how do we partner and work together to find some common ground? So I've been watching this from a distance. I'm going to continue to let the parties do their work, but it's something I feel very strongly about.
Again, we're down to like a couple of minutes here. I'm just going to jump around. The Lawyers Committee for Human Rights sued the city of Chicago about the Lincoln Yards TIF, attempting to get the TIF essentially dissolved. You're a lawyer and you're a mayor. At some point, Are you going to choose sides on this? Are you going to defend the city against this, which would mean defending the TIF, or
Well, the side that I'm always going to be on is on the side of the residents of the city and what's in their best interest. I'm aware of the lawsuit. I haven't personally read the complaint yet. I'm going to leave that to the lawyers at the law department, so I won't comment on existing litigation. But I understand the point, which people felt like this was a process that deviated from the norm. They felt like there wasn't sufficient community involvement, and I agree with that point for sure. But we have to do things a different way, which is transparently, involving community. Communities that are affected by mega developments have to have a seat at the table on the front end, not somewhere along the way on the front end. And that's a commitment that I make.
I have to ask you about Miguel del Valle. What was the reason for that choice?
Well,
what
I
are
haven't
your
said
thoughts
that.
about
I haven't said that that was my choice.
Oh, you haven't?
I haven't.
Oh, see, I thought that
Your
everything I had read
your
indicated
friend, your friend Fran put that out there, but I haven't made an offer yet to anybody to be president of the school
boy, do I
board.
stand corrected. I mean, like everybody else, I've just been reading that that's a fait accompli, that he's your choice. Well, okay. Would Miguel del Valle be a good choice?
Look, I think he would be a good choice. I mean, he's somebody obviously who knows a lot about the CPS landscape. He's given a lot of his blood, sweat, and tears to improving the quality of education when he was a state legislator, when he held different positions in state government, and plus he's a really good guy.
Yeah, an old friend of our show too. So you got about 5 or 6 other people to appoint to the board. Can you tell us who they are? You got
Not yet. We're waiting, and I'm not trying to be coy about this, but because of what's happened previously, CPS has a very extensive and thorough vetting process. We put names forward. We have a whole slate that we put forward, but I don't want to get ahead of that process. So as soon as we get the green light, then we'll make sure that we let those names out publicly.
And we're getting the red light here, so I think we better let you get back to running the city of Chicago and stop talking to reporters.
Well, Ken,
thank you so much.
I just want to say it's been a great pleasure. I think you've done a tremendous service to the city. Your programs, both that I've been on and that I've watched over the years, have always been great and informative. And I hope that this isn't the last chapter for you, that we see you in a different incarnation, because you do great work.
Thank you. I hope so too. And now that I no longer have to try to have any sort of, kind of objectivity about this, I really wish you good luck.
Thank you.
I really do. I voted for you. I will admit that publicly, and I was thrilled that you became mayor. And I really do, like you, I'm getting calls from friends who are saying, I just have this weird feeling of optimism. I know it can't last, but I can't, I'm feeling good about this.
That's good.
So don't let us down.
Thank you.
Good luck to you.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thanks.